As a late diagnosed autistic adult, there are so many struggles in my life that I've kept hidden from pretty much everyone, sometimes even including myself. I'm only just now coming to understand some of the frustrations that I've had for a lifetime. So I'm sharing this list with you today, including some other examples sent in from people within this beautiful community. This list isn't meant to be diagnostic, and not every autistic person is going to experience things on this list. But my hope is that by sharing it, if you're also on this late diagnosed autistic journey, you will feel less alone because there really are so many other incredible people on this journey with you. So many of them are here within the Mom on the Spectrum community. And if you want to be a part of that, it's super easy. Just click the subscribe button and you'll stay up to date with all of the cool stuff that we're doing around here. The first thing on my list is something that I made a reel about last week and it blew up. And there were so many comments like, oh my gosh, me too. Okay, I have trouble accessing, I don't know how else to say it, okay, accessing part of my brain when anyone else is in my house. That might sound wild, but if anyone else is here breathing, unless it's my cat, existing in this space, it's like I can't tap into a certain part of myself, a certain part of my brain power. Just going to leave it at that. Would love to know more in the comments if you experience this strange phenomenon as well. The next thing is understanding how and when to join a conversation, and also how much brain power it takes to continually try to navigate this. So it's kind of like, I feel a little silly mentioning this. Does anybody else have trouble getting on escalators and off escalators? Because I do, and I overthink it. And I'm like looking, watching the stairs, like, do I get on now? Do I get on now? Okay, maybe not everybody, but that's how it is for me in conversations. It's like I'm constantly watching, listening, trying to ascertain when can I say this? And then by the time I find an entry point, it's like the conversation has changed and we're not talking about that anymore. The other thing that I'm adding because of comments that came in is also how to leave, how to wrap up a conversation and leave. I don't know how many of you have been stuck in conversations forever because you're like, ooh, now I'm just sitting here really awkward. I don't have anything else to say or contribute, but I have no idea how to leave. The next thing on my list is picking out something to wear that is appropriate. And what I mean by that is there's this intersection. It seems like there's kind of three hemispheres. That's not possible because the hemispheres. Okay. So there's three different spheres. One is the weather. According to the weather, what should I wear today? The other one is my sensory needs. You know, what is feeling good today? Do I need something loose? Do I need something tight and like compression? What texture is feeling good to me? And then the third thing would be, what does the situation actually call for? So is this business casual? How do I know? You know, how am I supposed to present in this situation? So trying to find the intersection of all three of those things and what to wear is like so overwhelming every day. And I have so many cute sweaters that I haven't worn that I got for Christmas. My best friend and my mom just like nailed it this year and every year. But I tend to just gravitate towards stuff that feels good all the time, like this big oversized sweatshirt. And this is actually my new favorite piece of clothing. And this is my comfort sweatshirt. I'll put the link in the description. They're one of the companies that I'm an affiliate of, words today. And this is like a weighted sweatshirt. The fabric is really thick. I have never worn a sweatshirt like it. I'm serious. So I'll put the link in the description if you like to wear things that feel good all the time, and you can get 15% off just by using that link. I'm also wearing the sweatpants. And yes, it is dirty because I haven't washed it because I just wear it all the time. I mean, I have watched it since okay, we're getting on a tangent here, but my executive functioning is low and laundry is hard, and I wear this all the time. Next point. Okay, the next thing is probably something that you've heard me talk about if you've been around the channel for a while. It's having trouble understanding what I'm feeling. So this can be referred to as alexithymia, where you have a hard time putting emotions into words. And this is something that autistic people typically struggle with. I mean, it's a generalization, but a lot of us do. Not only that, but then communicating our feelings. So let's say that we do actually figure out how we're feeling. Congratulations. Let me know in the comments your tips and tricks for doing this. But then actually putting that into words and sharing it with other people in a way that is well received. Okay, so here's a personal example I can share that might help illustrate this. It's a medical example, and I'll share just because I know that a lot of us deal with medical issues and have a lot of trouble in that area. Actually, that could be another invisible struggle that we could add to the list. That'd be a whole nother video. Okay. So I've been trying to diagnose this pelvic pain or have a medical professional help me diagnose it. I've seen many different professionals and all these tests come back negative, negative. We don't know what it is. And I keep saying, I think it's a hernia. And everybody's like, no, you'd be like, they're very painful. You'd be in a lot more pain if this is a hernia. And I'm like, I am in pain. Like, I am hurting. And it's like, how do you want me to present my pain to you? How should I present it so that you understand that I'm hurting? Anyways, I had an ultrasound. I requested one finally. I was like, can we please just rule out hernia? And we had an ultrasound and they're like, there's a hernia. And the doctor's like, well, actually, I just got the lab report back. Okay. So it's that feeling of, okay, taking forever to figure out, not that this is an emotion, but to figure out how do I communicate this so that it's received. And I got off the topic of emotions a little bit, but like being able to identify how you're feeling, if you're frustrated, upset, overwhelmed, even happy sometimes. It's hard to understand or register when we're happy. So all of those things can be kind of complicated for autistic people. And I have another video over alexithymia. I made it a while ago now because I guess I've been a YouTuber for a little while now, which is wild. And I'll put a link up here to an older video that I did on alexithymia if you want to learn more. Okay, the next one on the list is something that I've come to understand recently as an autistic adult. And it is how difficult it is for me to understand expectations at work, in relationships, societally, unless they're explicitly stated. In school, this is what we want you to do and when. In relationships, this is what I need from you and why. Unless it's specifically, explicitly communicated, it's really hard for me to infer. So you've got to be very blunt and direct with me in terms of what you are needing from me. But then, let's talk about in the workplace. But then once we know those expectations, and again, this is a generalization, but a lot of autistic people, once we have those expectations clearly outlined, we will be a workhorse for you. We will get it done and we will get it done well. Like the more direction and expectations you can give us, the more we will be able to deliver. Now, demand avoidance comes into play, and that's another video that we'll get into later. But yes, defining expectations, so important for autistic people. Next one on the list is paying attention or being able to listen when there are extraneous noises and lights in the background. So if there's somebody in front of me talking, but there's a fluorescent light overhead, I'm probably not processing what this person is saying to me. All I'm thinking is, holy cow, that light is so bright. But then that feels so bizarre to say out loud. And that's why I want to make these videos. Like if I say, I can't hear you, the lights are too bright. Like, what? But you get it. You get it. If you're watching this video, you probably get it. You get it. The next one on the list, I'm not very happy to share because I wish that I was better at this and I wish it wasn't so much of a struggle, but I really struggle with keeping stories concise and to the point. And I'll even add interesting. I don't know. Do I want to do that to myself? Yes, I know I can hear myself sometimes and I'm like, this story, it's not interesting anymore. Was it ever interesting? I don't know. But I have to set it up. I have to give you an understanding of why I'm telling it and who's involved. And like, you have to know the components of it in order to really get out of it what I want you to get out of it. So there's a lot of setup. Everybody loves a lot of setup, right? A lot of exposition. It's the best. That's life with an autistic person. There's a lot of exposition. Next one on the list is definitely something I struggle with, but somebody added it in the comments and I had forgotten to put it on my list. And I was like, yes, okay. Mixing worlds. Let me explain. Mixing worlds is what I'm referring to it. And the way I'm referring to it is when different groups of people in your life merge. I can almost not even talk about it because it's so stressful. So let's say like your coworkers and your family and your best friend. It's like I have never interacted with a human before in my life. That's dramatic, but it's hard to think of a more stressful situation than different friend groups merging. I don't know how to interact with all of them together. Another thing that I really struggle with is switching my attention in the middle of a task. So classic example is being interrupted at home by the kids. I'm working on something, mom, 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 mom. Not that anybody's good at it, but especially for autistic people, again, generally speaking, being interrupted when you're in a state of hyperfocus, and this is especially true for ADHD or ADHD people, it is like warning sirens going off in your brain, like, no, 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 no. It's very easy to trigger like upset, frustration, overwhelm. Maybe you lash out, you're angry. So if you do that, just know you're not alone. It can help to kind of understand the context of why that might be happening, in the sense that autistic people, once we're focused on something, it's this idea of autistic inertia. And I can post a video about that as well. Autistic inertia is once we start on something, we want to keep going on that thing. And if we're at a state of rest, we want to stay in that state of rest. It's really hard to get out of it. So yeah, nobody likes to be interrupted when they're focusing, but it can cause so much dysregulation for an autistic person, to the point where, I don't know, you might lose words, you might start stimming, you might just be like, oh my gosh, why am I so anxious? What's happening? So it can cause a reaction in us. So if this is news to you, I hope it helps you kind of understand why that might be a frustrating experience for you. The next one on the list was sent in again by someone in the comments, and I loved it. So being responsible for another person. Now, let me explain. I believe autistic people generally are completely capable of being responsible for another person. Good thing, because I'm a mother and I have 2 children and I love them and adore them and they're my world. I'm totally capable of it. But whenever I am in charge of another human being, like chaperoning at school events, oh my gosh, it's all consuming. If I'm responsible for another person, it's at the expense of myself. And that, maybe that sounds obvious. Maybe you're like, yeah, if you're in charge of somebody else. Yes, I know. But it's like, I forget, I don't even know the words for this. Maybe somebody can help me in the comments. It's just like, I had this feeling when I became a mother. And it's going to sound so generalized, okay? But autistic people help me put words to this. It's just this realization that, like, my life will never be the same. Like, I will never not be in charge of another human being. And in this way, it's like a part of my brain is always switched on. And yes, that's true for non-autistic parents as well, autistic parents as well. But there's something about being in charge of another person for an autistic person. It's just, I think we have this sense of duty, this sense of responsibility and justice. Generalizations I'm making, but it just goes into hyperdrive when we're in charge of another person. And it is like so exhausting. So it's been really hard for me to admit that things like school field trips, those are incredibly difficult for me. Not because I can't do it, but I look back, and my mom was at everything at school. She lived up at school. She was at all the events. And I thought that I would just step into that, like, oh, that's what moms do. But it is so freaking hard for me to do that. And again, it's not because I can't, it's just because it takes such an incredible deal of concentration and focus from me that I'm depleted afterwards. So I just have to be extra careful about the things that I say yes to, especially when it involves being responsible for other people. The next one on the list got a lot of feedback from people in the comments when I originally posted this on Instagram. Eating in front of other people. This is so difficult for me. I don't like it. So there's so much sensory overwhelm, because food can be a very overwhelming experience. Eating can be a very overwhelming experience for an autistic person, period, even when they're by themselves, because of the texture, the food quality, the flavors, the smells. It's a very sensory experience. But then you add in the social component of having another person with you, juggling the conversation, another person who is also chewing and making sounds, and then watching you. So this idea that I've talked about on the channel a little bit of being perceived, another person is now watching you and aware of you while you eat. And that can really just mess with an autistic person's brain. So a lot of feedback on that in the comments. I'm curious to hear how else that affects others in our community, because yeah, it seems like this is a thing. Eating in front of other people is really difficult. Oh, and by the way, I keep forgetting to mention this. This is my omnipresent fidget that I always have on my desk. It's an Ono roller, and it's totally silent. It has a great weight to it. I use it all the time. I'll put a link in the description, and there's a discount code if you want to check into it for yourself. I love it. Okay, I added this one to the list kind of last minute. I have trouble with thinking small. Let me unpack this. One thing that I've come to love about the autistic brain is that we're so good at making connections. And I think there's even been studies of this done I don't have the specific studies to point to, but where our brain will just like light up with connections. It's kind of like when you see a power grid on the map and all the lights are like across the city, just poof. So if somebody suggests something, it's like, I can't just keep it small and do that one thing. I wish I had a good example for this, but it's like immediately once I start thinking about it or approaching the idea or the project or the task, it's like it just gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And I'm going to do it really well and I'm going to do it really thoroughly and it's going to be at a really high level. But then you mix this in with the ADHD like hyper focus and it can get really out of hand really quickly in the sense of like, this was supposed to be a 5-minute task and now it's taken 3 weeks, and that's not even an exaggeration. Like there's some things I've wanted to do for the channel, whether that's a video or a resource where it's like, Taylor, this is going to be one PDF and now it's like a 10 video series. So yeah, I have trouble taking an idea, task, responsibility, anything and keeping it small. Maybe that plays into the responsibility of watching others. Like I just can't, that's not like a small thing. It's just like, okay, anyways, I'm stressing myself out. Next one on the list, a very important thing that I love to talk about on the channel, something that's difficult for me is knowing what I want and what I need. This can be a really hard thing for autistic people, and I'm not a medical professional, but I believe that this experience of having trouble identifying what we want and need within the autistic community a lot of times can stem from trauma. It can stem from people pleasing. It can stem from being hyper vigilant, always on guard. We're always trying to be aware of what other people want and expect and need from us to the point that we don't actually ask ourselves what we want and need. And when we get used to doing that, rediscovering what we want and need can feel like this insurmountable challenge of when did I ever know what I wanted or needed? So I'm here for you with that. Like a lot of the videos that I create and a lot of things I'm wanting to explore here in 2025 are working on helping us identify what we want and need, because what is life if we don't know what we want or need, right? Let's start identifying those things and bringing them into our lives. I'm here to help you with that. I actually do have a current offering that I can plug here. I wasn't even thinking about this. It's called Unstuckify Your Life. So this is kind of, if you like kind of worksheets and questions and papers that you can fill in with answers, I'll put a link in the description to Unstuckify Your Life, which a big component of that is figuring out what you want and need. So check it out if that resonates with you. Next one on the list is one that I added, again, based on something sent in from the community. That's being able to process multiple questions in a row. Okay, hold up. Okay, let's focus on the first question. Okay, let's talk about that and then we'll go to second. If you start hitting me with just question after question, I will just slowly and then leave the conversation mentally. But you'll be like, where did Taylor go? She's here, but she's not talking to me. Don't ask me multiple questions in a row, please. And now that I'm thinking about it, when I'm trying to figure out how to enter a conversation, a lot of times, for lack of a better word, neurotypicals will do this where they'll ask each other a question and like they'll start answering it, but then they don't ever finish it. And somebody else will jump in with a new idea. Okay, now I'm new idea. And it's like, well, okay, but that was a good Another one from the comments, getting stuck on a metaphor that someone shares in conversation and then losing track of the conversation. I also wanted to add idiom in here. So like different turns of phrases like, I guess is an idiom, an apple a day keeps the doctor away, stuff like that, where people will just say stuff and you're like, wait, idioms are so confusing to me. And if you share one, or like this person in the comments mentioned with the metaphor, if you insert one of those into the conversation, it's like, hang on. How did we get here? How does this fit? Okay, I'm good. And then by the time I'm back in the conversation, it's like, oh wait, we're not here anymore. Idioms are so weird. And lately, when I try to state an idiom, because now that you mention it, I've been thinking a lot about idioms and I've heard them all my life. And lately when I've tried to like restate an idiom, I can't do it correctly. It's like I've heard it a million times and I can hear it in my brain, but like I can't find the words to say it correctly. Does that make sense to anybody else? Okay, let's keep going. Oh my gosh, following verbal instructions. Like I've just now started to realize how overwhelming that is to me. I mean, I've always known it's overwhelming, but as soon as someone starts on something like that, I'm like, okay, either please write this down or let me get a pen and pencil, or let me put this on my paper and pencil, and let me, type this on my notepad on my phone, because no. And then the last one, I think so many of you are going to be like, I'm picturing the meme or the GIF, I say GIF instead of GIF, whatever, of David Rose from Schitt's Creek, where he's going, okay. So the last one I'm picturing everyone doing that. The last thing on the list that's a struggle for me and apparently other autistic people, thank you, is not correcting people when they share something that's factually incorrect. It's like, I know it might not even change anything in the conversation. It might not make anything better. It might not, maybe they can share the whole point that they need to share without me needing to correct it, and it'll be fine and everybody will survive. But I guess it's kind of like when somebody shares an idiom. Okay, then I'm not thinking about anything else that you're saying until we figure out, okay, why did you share that statistic? That's not actually true. That's not what happened. It's like, okay, I don't know anything else that you're saying now. So can we go back to that, please? And then sometimes people think we're being mean or snarky or whatever. It's like, no, it's just if it's not right, it's like it's nothing against you. It's not a judgment against you. I'm not I don't think that you're dumb or stupid or whatever. I just we just need to fix it. It's just okay, gotta shake it off. Might need some emotional regulation over here to help me process the frustrations that I guess voluntarily brought up for myself by making this list. But at least I'll be in a comfortable weighted hoodie while I figure it out. So let me know in the comments which ones resonated with you and which ones you'd add to the list. Like the video, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.